Dear student, I'm Akansha and I'm taking your lecture called Human Resource Development. The subject code for it is MMPH002. So let's start. As you must be aware that the syllabus of Human Resource Development is divided into four blocks. The block number one was Introduction to HRD. The second is Managing HRD. The third is HRD Practices. And the last block is Experience and Trend in the HRD. Dear student, these four blocks are divided into 12 units, and up till now we have done till unit number 7. So today we are starting the block number 3, that is HRD in practice, and here we'll be talking about unit number 8 and unit number 9. Unit number 8 focused about HRD culture and climate, whereas unit number 9 focuses on counseling, coaching, and mentoring. So initially, we'll be talking about the culture and the climate, and later on, we'll be talking about counseling, coaching, and mentoring. So let's start. So, what will be your takeaways from the today's class? We're talking about the introduction of both climate and culture. We'll be talking about the definitions. Then, from generic culture and climate, we'll be talking about upon HRD culture and climate. Then, elements of HRD. What contributes to HRD climate? Then we'll be talking about the concept and objective of coaching and mentoring, the basic process of coaching and mentoring, coaching process and mentoring process. So this is how your content of today's class is designed. Let's begin. So, what is culture and climate? First, let's talk about it. Because students are generally keen in knowing, are they same, are they different? So, the culture basically is derived from a word called cultura, which means doing something. Fine, when you do something, you're involved into activities, and for activities, you need skills. So, your culture helps in developing those skills. So, culture and climate are similar as well as dissimilar. They are similar because for a layman they are alike, but technically they two are different. They're different because culture is related with human activities, whereas climate is operational activity related with the environment. In short, culture deals with how you act, your action in the organization, and in which environment you have to perform those action is determined by the organizational climate. So, culture shows human activities and climate shows the convenience of human being to work and live happily in the organization. So, the subject of the organization, culture and climate is important for you people to understand. So, let's get into the technicality of it. An organization's culture can be broadly defined as values, behavioral patterns, norms, attitudes that a group has in common. Fine. And an organization climate is the observable and measurable indicator of the culture. So we'll be talking about these terms one by one. As I told you that organization culture is made up of values, behavioral patterns, norms and attitude. Fine, so we'll be talking about each and every term one by one. Values are nothing, these are your beliefs and the practices which are being passed from one culture to other. Same happens in the organization. The organization also has certain beliefs. Behavioral patterns are the patterns of behavior which vary from one individual to other. Fine. For example, the people who are having type A personality are very aggressive, they're very proactive, they love to take feedback. Similarly, people who are having type B personality are having different behavioral pattern. They're happy-go-lucky. They don't have any sense of urgency, right? They go by the flow of that. So understanding culture, you have to understand the behavioral pattern of the people too. Now, norms. Norms are nothing. Norms are the rules and regulations. and you know that rules and regulations are essential for everybody to perform, whether it is an organization, group, or an individual. And attitudes are your likes and dislikes. Attitude can be defined as predisposition of a person towards any object, event, and thing. Right? You make your mind, like for example, you make your mind towards study, that the studies are interesting. Or you make your mind towards some sports, say cricket, that you love to play cricket. These are what? These are the examples of positive attitude towards study as well as towards cricket. Fine. And all these not only impact you, your performance, but organization. And they together make the organization's culture. Fine. And climate is what? Climate is observable and measurable indicator of the culture. Now you must be wondering that why I am saying it as an observable and measurable indicator. Because it is impacted by five factors. These factors are organizational context, the structure, the leadership, the physical environment, and the value system of the organization. I'll covering each one of them. First, we talk about the context. The context of the organization is defined in terms of vision, mission, goals, and objectives. You must have seen in every organization the written vision and mission statement, which talks about the philosophy of the organization. We can observe it also and we can measure it also. Same goes with the organizational structure. Organizational structure can be tall, it can be flat. It is how various hierarchical levels within the organizations are arranged. Fine. And it is very apparent through organizational charts in the organization. Now, leadership style. Leadership style may vary from autocratic, democratic, and free reign. Right? It also depends on the organizational climate and culture. Then we talk about the value system. It is reflected how the people behave and they interact with other people within the organization. And physical environment of the organization is reflected by the plant layout. That how tools, equipments, and machineries are being arranged within the organization. The reason we say is that organizational climate is observable and measurable indicator of the culture. So this is how culture is different from climate. Right. So can we say culture and climates are closely related concepts and can be influenced by some of the same factors such as leadership and socialization process. Now what is leadership? Leadership is a process of influence where a leader is influencing the follower in a positive way. Leader is somebody who's infusing the energy in the group, who is leading them from on the front and helping them whenever there is a problem faced by the follower. Now, what is socialization? Socialization is a process by which an individual learns the social pattern or socially accepted behavioral pattern either in a society or in an organization or in a group. And why is culture and climate look similar? Because these two are impacted by both leadership and socialization. Dear students, now let's get into the definition of climate. I will be taking the definition given by Helbriegel and Sockham in the year 1974. They define organizational culture as a set of attributes which can be perceived about a particular organization or its success. And that may be included in the way that organization or its subsystem deal with their member and the environment.
So there are various terms in this definition. We have to understand that. He says what? Climate is a set of attributes. Attributes of what? These are the traits and characteristics which an individual of the organization is perceiving. Perception. What is perception? Perception is your way of looking at things. Fine. How you process your sensory inputs and drive meaning to something comes from your perception. The student irony with perception is that it is subjective. You may perceive one thing as good, the other person can perceive it in a negative. So we talk about organization climate as perception towards the organizational subsystem or the members or the environment. All right. So to help you people understand the definition better, let's discuss the sub point of this definition and the characteristics. The point number A says perception response sought are primarily descriptive rather than evaluative. As I told you, perception is subjective and a cognitive process. Every individual is having their own subjective lens. You may perceive a phenomenon in a good way, and second party can perceive it in a negative. Same happens with the definition of organizational climate. Now, the level of inclusiveness of item, scale, and construct are macro rather than micro. The focus of climate is on macro environmental factors rather than on micro. The unit of analysis tend to be attributes of organization or specific subsystem rather than the individual. So, when we talk about the climate, our focus is not on individual, right? Our focus is on the entire organization. Last, the perception has potential behavioral consequences. Dear student, I always says that behavior is an output and input to it is your various psychological dimensions like your attitude, motivation, personality, and also the perception. Alright, your perception is an input to your behavioral output. So, when you perceive about the organizational climate, how it is, either good or bad, your perception plays an important role. So, this is the definition of climate. Now, we'll continue with the definition. Organizational climate is a relatively enduring quality of the internal environment that is expressed by its members, influences their behavior, and can be described in terms of values of a particular set of characteristics of the organization. And the beauty of this is that every nation has a different climate, and similarly, every organization has a different climate. And if you have to distinguish one organization from other, you will be doing it on the basis of organizational climate. So, we can say that organization climate is a medium that distinguish between organization to organization and influences individuals' behavior within the organization. Now, I'll introduce to you all one of the important definition given by Stephen P. Robbins. He is the pioneer in the area of organizational behavior, a very prominent author. He says that organization climate includes geographical location, climate of the area, political and social atmosphere, quality of the people, their social life, customs, habits, educational background, and standard of living. To conclude this definition, dear student, I'll say that none of the organization works in isolation, right? As we have talked in the previous classes too, that organization is an open system. So, the geographical location it belongs to, the climate area where organization functions, the political and social atmosphere of that area, The quality of people, are they semi-skilled, unskilled, highly skilled, population, is the society hugely populated, social life, the customs, traditions, habit, educational background, are they highly qualified, unqualified, and standard of living all impact organization culture. Although the culture of the nation is different and the organizational climate and culture are different. But where your organization belongs to, the climate of that particular region impacts the climate of your organization. So this is the definition by Stephen P. Robbins on organizational climate. Fine. Now let's talk about HRD climate. Dear student, organization is a system and it is made up of various subsystems. So it won't be false if I say that HRD climate is the subsystem of the organizational climate. So HRD climate is an integral part of organizational climate. It can be defined as perception of the employees and can have on the developmental environment of an organization. That what your people perceive about the development environment in your organization. This development climate will have the following characteristics. We'll be talking about each and every characteristics one by one. The first is a tendency at all the level, starting from the top management to the lowest level, to treat people as the most important resources. So whenever we talk about human resource development, the involvement of top to bottom is very essential. Second, a perception that developing the competencies in the employees is the job of every manager or the supervisor. Dear student, when you have to provide the HRD climate in the organization, the development task cannot be restricted to the HR personnel of the organization. It is not the task of the HR department only. It is the responsibility of each and every manager within the organization. Next, faith in the capability of the employees to change and acquire new competencies at any stage of their life. The point is very interesting. There are certain myths. Fine. First, the organization at times doesn't have confidence in the ability of its employee. So if you're going for HRD climate and its application, you need to have faith or the confidence in the capability of each and every employee of your organization. The second myth is this, that people are reluctant to change, right? And if you have to be a progressive organization, the change is the only constant, isn't it so? So the HRD climate ensures that employees are capable and they are willing to change. Change in order to acquire new skills at every stage of life. The age has no bar, the barrier in the development. All right. Next it says that a tendency to be open communication and discussion rather than being secret. You have to provide a culture, the climate where every employee in the organization is free to communicate. Free to communicate their feeling, their problems, and the solution if they have any related to any problem within the organization. Next, you have to encourage risk taking and experimentation in the organization. This climate helps people to think out of the box, and if they are thinking out of the box, then only innovation can happen. Right. Making efforts to help employees recognize their strengths and weaknesses through the feedback. The concept of self, which we call as self concept too, plays an important role in the development of individual as well as organization. So, as a manager, you have to help your people in understanding their strengths and weaknesses and that can be done with the help of effective feedback. You have to generate climate of trust. Trust comes with observation. Trust is very essential when you deal with people. You have to trust in their abilities. Fine. Next, a tendency on the part of the employer to be generally helpful to each other and collaborative with each other. In today's time, every organization is focusing on team rather than individual. We talk about the concept of synergy, that together we are a strength. And in order to generate a team spirit or synergy, each and every member in the organization has to understand the importance of collaboration and working together. Then only you can provide the climate of cooperation within the organization. Now, tendency to discourage stereotype and favoritism. Now, what is stereotype? The stereotype is this, that you evaluate or judge an individual or group of individual on certain traits. Alright, generally a student, the teacher has a stereotype in the mind that student who sit in the last bench is not studious. Same happens in the organization also. The manager made certain stereotype. So the objective of HRD climate is to minimize stereotypism and favoritism. Now, supportive personal policies. Policies are what? Policies are the guidelines which are being formulated by the top level management within the organization. Next, the supportive HRD practices includes performance appraisal, training, reward and management, potential development, job rotation, and career planning. Performance appraisal is evaluating the performance of the people. Generally, it is done annually. Training deals with enhancing the skill of the people. Reward leads to positive reinforcement within the organization. Potential development deals with the potential skill of the people which will be used in the times to come. Job rotation means that you are rotating an employee from one job to other so that monotony or the burden can be broken down, and it leads to enhanced motivation among the people. Career planning deals with career management, and you have to integrate the career development of the people with the organizational growth. All these leads to HRD climate within the organization. Now, the elements of HRD climate. Dear student, the elements of HRD climate can be divided into three parts: the general climate, octopus, and HRD mechanism. So, the general climate items deal with the importance given to human resource development in general by the top level management and the line management. And what is their philosophy? What is their involvement with respect to developing the general capabilities of the people? Whereas octopus refers to openness, confrontation, trust, autonomy, proactivity, authenticity, and collaboration. And they are valued and promoted in the organization whenever we talk about the HRD climate. Whereas the HRD mechanism measures the extent to which HRD mechanisms are implemented seriously within the organization. All the subsystem of HRD shall not be on paper, right? Potential appraisal, performance appraisal, career planning, OD. They shall be intact and very well functional within the organization. Right? They shall not be ornamental. If they are ornamental, it will not serve the purpose of anybody within the organization. So we're talking about all these sub elements of HRD element in detail one by one. So first was general environment. General supportive climate is important for HRD if it has to be implemented effectively. Such supportive climate consists of not only top management, line management's commitment, good personal policies, and positive attitude is required from everybody within the organization. Alright. For the successful implementation of HRE, it involves an integrated look at HRD and efforts to use as HRD mechanism as possible. What is HRD mechanism? What are the subsystem of it? We're talking in the next. So, HRD mechanism, which is also called as HRD system, is made up of various subsystems. And when we have to look at these subsystems, we have to take them as integrated rather than individual subsystem of the HRD system. Why and how they will help your organization? They'll help in increased profitability, growth, and success of the organization. So we'll be talking about these subsystems one by one. First is performance appraisal. As it is apparent from its name, it is a process by which the performance of an individual is evaluated after a certain period of time. The standard to performance appraisals comes from the job analysis. Job analysis gives you what is required to be performed on a job. On the basis of it, the actual performance of an individual is evaluated or compared with those standards. There can be three outcomes of it. Either is performance is above the standard, or it is at par, or it is below the standard. Fine. The objective of any performance appraisal system is not to find the faults among the people. Suppose if the performance is falling below the standard, what you have to do? You have to ensure that while performance is lagging, do my employee need counseling? Do they need coaching? Do they need mentoring? Or shall I design some training and development program to enhance the performance of the people? This is what performance appraisal is. Next is review, discussion and feedback, as well as counseling session. As I told you, once you got to know how your people are performing, you have to communicate. You can communicate it through review discussion, or through the feedbacks, or through the counseling session. Again, you have to be very constructive during this discussion, because here you're not telling people their pitfalls, right? Their weaknesses. But you have to do the hand holding too. If there's a lagging, there's a limitation, you have to help them in becoming better or overcoming that limitation. That only you can ensure the HRD climate within the organization. Next, the potential appraisal. As I told you, the traditional organizations used to focus on performance appraisal. But the limitation, I'll say, of performance appraisal is that we are evaluating the past performance of the people. Alright, that what they did in the last 1 year or this for say 6 months. But if your employee was not able to perform in the last 1 year or the 6 year, whatever is the time period of your performance appraisal, it doesn't mean that they won't be a good performer in the future too. Alright, so the focus of potential appraisal is not only evaluating the past performance of the people, but understanding the future potential of you. That if my organization required this task to be done, who is having potential of meeting or performing that task in my organization? This is done by potential appraisal. Training. Training is very essential in upgrading the skill of the people. It is related to technical know-how, and because world is getting very competitive these days, you have to impart continuous training to your people. Training again has a process. It starts with the training need assessment, then designing the training program, then implementing it, and then evaluating that are we able to attain the objective or the learning objective which we people have set for these programs. All right, the communication policy. As I told you earlier, If you have to inculcate the HRD climate within your organization, you have to provide a culture and the climate of open communication, where nobody is hesitant to communicate, either top to bottom or bottom to top within the hierarchy. Job rotation, again a very important subsystem of HRD, where you're rotating one employee from one job to other, but somewhat related job. It generally breaks the monotony of the people, make them more capable, make them multitasking, and in future, if some employee of your organization is leaving your organization, then you have already a person with you who can, for the timing, who can replace or work for the position which is vacant. Now, our organizational development organizers, dear student, change is the only constant in this world, and change can be of two types. It can be planned change or unplanned change. Generally, organizational development deals with planned change, and these are the interventions which help the manager or the organization in inculcating the planned change within the organization. That the next subsystem of HRD mechanism is rewards. Rewards can be monetary, it can be non-monetary. Non-monetary means anything apart from money. A letter of appreciation, employee of the week can also work as a non-monetary reward. Monetary reward obviously can be in terms of incentives, right? Some coupons, some vouchers, etc. Why they are given? They are given for the positive reinforcement of the behavior among the employee. Why? Because we believe if you reward a positive behavior within the organization, chances of repeating that behavior is more. Alright, job enrichment. Job enrichment means vertically upward movement of the employee in a hierarchy. Right? You're promoting them. When you're promoting them, although this promotion can be a dry promotion, the autonomy, the freedom of taking decision, you have more control of the people, and that's why it motivates the people to 360-degree feedback, right? Here, as 360 degrees is a complete angle. So 360-degree feedback means you're taking feedback from everybody who is coming in the contact of the employee of whom you are taking the feedback. It can be junior, it can be senior, it can be colleagues, it can be client, it can be anybody. The importance of 360 feedback is this, that you minimizes the biasness in the feedback. Then employee engagement, that how much engaged employee is within the organization. Engaged employees are more predictive, and the chance of staying with your organization is last is competency mapping. Competency is nothing, it is knowledge, skill, ability, attitude, value system, and behavior of the people within the organization. So these are what? These are the subsystem of HRD mechanism. Now, the last is element of HRD is octa-based culture, and it is essential for facilitating the human resource development within the organization. Here, O stands for openness. Is there where employee feels free to discuss their ideas, activities, and feeling with each other within the organization. Then confrontation, it brings out problem and issues into the open with a view to solving them rather than hiding them because of the fear of hurting or getting hurt. Confrontation means that whenever you face some problem within the organization, you are capable enough of solving it on your own. You need to hide it. Just inform or solve it. Trust. Trust is taking people at their face value and believing what they say is true. Alright. And as I told you, trust comes with time. And trust is very essential for interpersonal skills, and once it is broken, it is hard to regain. Autonomy means feel freedom to let people work independently with responsibility. Because at an HRD climate, we are ensuring that every individual within the organization is capable, they're competent, they're confident, right? So you're giving them freedom to take the decision independently. Not proactive. Proactive means thinking in advance, deciding in advance. So being proactive is encouraging employees to take initiative and risk within the organization. And authenticity means that the action you are taking to achieve any means shall be legitimate. They have to be legal. And it is the tendency on the part of the people to do what they say. Last is collaboration. It believes in teamwork. Together we are a strength. I may be bad at one thing, you may be good at another thing. But I may be good at something else, which you are not. Right? Together we can achieve great heights. So collaboration is to accept interdependencies, to be helpful to each other and work as a team. So these are the elements of HRD climate. Now, let's talk about what contributes to HRD climate. The top management support and the philosophy is essential. Personal policies. These are what? These are the guidelines which are generally set by top level people. And personal policies can be guidelines related to any functional area of HR, like recruitment and selection, performance appraisal, training and development, compensation, leave policies, so on and so forth. Right. So the policies also plays an important role in making the HRD climate functional within the organization. HRD instrument and subsystem, which we talked before this slide, the performance appraisal, potential appraisal, you have to look at them from an integrated point of view. Don't treat all of them as a separate function of human resource development or management. They have to be integrated so that overall organizational effectiveness and efficiency can be increased. Self-renewal mechanism works on the feedback. Constant and continuous feedback can help you in inculcating the HRD climate within the organization. Attitude of the personnel and HRD staff. Dear student minded, today you are not hired for your abilities or your competencies. You are hired for your attitude, right? Or you may be hired for your competencies, but you are retained for your positive attitude, right? Positive attitude toward the organization and the work you are doing within the organization. Your growth depends on the attitude. Last but not least is the commitment of the line manager. Please understand that HRD is not only the function of the HR department or the top level management. Every manager, whether it is a line manager, has to be committed towards the HRD plan. Then only we can ensure it in our organization. Fine. Now we are moving on to the next unit, that is counseling, coaching and mentoring. And again, for the layman, they look alike. Counseling, coaching, and mentoring, they all focuses on developing the people, and generally they employ communication for doing so. But what is the difference between three? Counseling is demonstrating your people what you do and how you do. Coaching is related to one particular skill, whereas mentoring deals with, moreover, the psychological well-being of your people within the organization. So, to put it into better terms, I'll say that when mentoring is concerned about the general development and psychological well-being of a person, performance review counts, whereas counseling or coaching focuses on analyzing of performance on the job and identification of training needs for further improvement. All right. So mentoring is linked with psychological well-being, whereas counseling or coaching are linked with the performance, the gap identification, and then fulfilling that gap with the effective training program. Why we need coaching? What are the objectives? Help him to realize the potential as a manager. You have immense potential, and at time you are yourself not aware about that potential. Help them to understand their strength and weaknesses, their self-concept, who they are. At time and time say that how you see yourself impact you more than anybody can impact you in this world. So coaching help in understanding an individual better. Provide them an opportunity to acquire more insights into their behaviors and analyze the dynamics of human. Dear student, human behavior is very important topic to understand, right? Because it can be at times overt and covert. At times you express it, and other time you suppress it. So, in order to understand people in totality, and before you coach them, you have to provide them more insight into their own behavior, behavioral pattern, right? And this can help them in understanding are they a problem for themselves, and same goes with the team and the organization. Now, help him to have better understanding of the environment. Just like in organization, none of the individual works in isolation, right? We have to work in an organization, and its climate and culture has an impact on us. So, understanding the environment and conceiving it in a positive way is essential for coaching too. Increasing the personal and interpersonal effectiveness through feedback. Feedback time and time is essential. Feedback tells you how you're performing, and it has further chance of improvement. Encourage him to set goals for further improvement. Goals. Goals give you direction. Goals tell you what you have to do. Goals also help you to prioritize your tasks. So as a coach can help the fellow people in determining their goals. Encourage them to generate alternative for dealing with the problem and prepare a plan of action. Help them in reviewing a non-threatening way his progress in achieving various objectives. And last is providing empathetic atmosphere for sharing and discussing the tension, the conflicts, the concern, and the problem. Problem is this: we all are human beings, right? And as in human, you face several problems, but you find nobody to talk about it, right? So as a manager, as a coach, you have to be empathetic. Empathy means putting yourself in other shoe, thinking or looking at a problem from the perspective of other problems. If you start practicing empathy, you don't mind, various your interpersonal problems can be resolved. So these are the objectives of coaching. Now, mentoring, what it is and what are the objectives. The main purpose of mentoring is to provide opportunity to the young people to share the concern, get what moral support and guidance for their development. The following are the objectives. It establishes a relationship of trust with your mentee. You model their behavior. Fine, young people at times doesn't know how to behave. So mentoring can give them the direction. Listening to the person's concern and problem. Look, just like communication, listening is two-way process, right? The problem is that instead of active listener, people are passive listener. They listen, not to listen, but to respond. Whenever somebody is saying something to you, don't you think you are also in a hurry to think what will be my reply to the question? Are your eyes, ear, guts are in line with what somebody is saying? So listening is very essential if you're a coach, you're a counselor, or you are a mentor. Help him to search alternative solution to the problem, sharing own relevant experience. Obviously, mentor is very senior than the mentee. So, you can also share your own experiences with your mentees. Responding to his emotional needs without making him dependent on the mentor. Again, I'll say we all are humans, and humans are born with the emotions. So, at times, mentor also provides the emotional support to the mentee. Fine. Now we are moving on to the basic process of coaching and mentoring. Both coaching and mentoring involves three processes. These are communication, empowering, and helping. Communication is a very common term these days, right? And the beauty of this concept is this: we are communicating since the day we people have taken birth. And the communication is derived from a Latin word communicare, which means common. Fine. Here, what does common means? Establishing a common ground of understanding between sender and receiver. What does it mean? It means what the communicator or the speaker is saying. Is the receiver receiving the same message in the same context? If yes, then only process of communication has occurred. And for coaching, mentoring, and counseling, communication plays a key. Communication involves both receiving the message, giving the message, and giving the feedback. So, every coach, every mentor has to be a good communicator. Alright. Then empowering. Empowering means giving strength to your people. The process of empowering involves enabling the other person to exercise more autonomy, the freedom in decision making, providing positive reinforcements to rewards. Because if you reward the positive behavior, chances of repeating is more. So that desirable behavior is further strengthened and creating condition in which the person is able to learn from the behavior of supervisor or the mentor. Whenever it comes to empowering, coaching, mentoring, and counseling, your behavior is also plays a crucial role. Why? Because your mentees are observing you, right? And when they are observing you, they consider you to be the ideal. Now they mimic your behavior. So, as a coach, as a mentor, as a counselor, you have to be extra cautious of how you behave. That the concern and empathy. Dear student, empathy is different from sympathy, right? Empathy means thinking on a problem from others' perspective. Suppose if my student is late to the class, as a teacher, generally we carry a perception that the people are very careless, right? But when it comes to empathetical decision making, if you understand the reason that why my student is not able to come to the class on time, fine. The second situation may put you in a better position as a leader or as a teacher or as a manager. All right, this is the significance of empathy. So, concern and empathy of the coach or the mentor for the employee is the basic of helping behavior. It is. It also involves mutuality of relationship, that is empathy and sympathy. The employee respond as much to the coach need as the coach or the mentor does to the employees. What it mean to say? It mean to say when as a coach you are able to create empathetic relationship with your mentees. Not only you are helping them with their needs, they may also give you back in return. All right, because interpersonal skills in the relationship are two-way traffic. So this is the role of empathy, and I'll say if you start practicing empathy, many of your interpersonal skills, your people-related skills will be enhanced, and your people-related problem will be resolved. Fine. A very interesting diagram. It is a circular helping process, and there can be two type of processes. One is dependence, and another one is autonomy or interdependence. So we'll be having a look at both the types. Now let's look at the problem. In type A, the problem is ignorance, lack of understanding, lack of capability, inability to act, inability to make rational decision, weakness. Fine. So how you perceive about your client? You will perceive perceived, they're ignorant, incapable of making rational choice, and they're irresponsible. And the dependence of you on them is increased, right? So your resultant behavior will be, you will tell them what to do, you will explain the process and the problem, you will suggest a simple solution, you will give them advice, give them solution, and not rational and very critical solution you will provide. You will just provide very simplistic solution to the problem. Now, we are moving on to type B, process of helping behavior, and the result of it is autonomy or interdependence. Now, have a look at this. Now, in this process, again, there's a problem. Outside forces are impacting you, complex factors are impacting you, blocks preventing client to perceive complexity, client's unfamiliarity with the resources. Fine. You assume they're ignorant, capable of rational decision making, and they're responsible people. Then again, the dependencies, your way of perceiving any problem has changed. Now you have become interdependent, right? Now how it will result in problem solving? You will analyze with your client, obviously, the forces, the external environmental forces. You will encourage the client to analyze the dynamics and encourage the client to identify the blocks or the blockage or the hurdles, and encourage the client to develop the referral system. Fine. So what I'm trying to convey with the help of this diagram is this. The way you look at the problem, your orientation or your problem solving or your helping process become different. The first, the type A, is the example of dependence. You are not evolving your client or your people. You are just making them dependent on you. Whereas in type B, the process is completely changed because your perception was different. Right? You're not perceiving them as incompetent, not capable of performing the task, but you are considering them responsible people. So your orientation has changed. Now instead of dependency, they have become autonomy and interdependent on you, and the way you're solving the problem has also changed. So the takeaway from this is, I suggest you that if you want to become a coach, counselor, or mentor, go for type B rather than a type A. Fine. Now we are talking about the coaching process. This student coaching again has three subset under it, or three processes under it. First is rapport building and exploration and action plan. The rapport building, you are making a relationship with your mentee or a mentor. Oh, this person who is under you. Exploration, you are trying to figure out the problem. And the action planning phase, you are trying to provide the solution to that problem. So we'll be talking about each and every stage one by one. So in the rapport building phase, a good coach attempts to establish a climate of acceptance, warmth, support, openness, and vitality. Vitality means empathy and sympathy. He does this by empathizing with the employee and his orientation. You're not looking them from a negative eye. You're empathetic. How you're empathetic? You're listening to the problem and their feelings. How you're doing it? You're doing it by communicating his understanding as an employee and by expressing empathy with and genuine interest in him. You have to not only empathetic, you have to show interest in their problem. If you show the interest in their problem, then only you will be able to make the trust with them. If the trust is built, then only they will feel free to communicate with you their problem. And when you know the problem, then only the solution can be provided. So this is the importance of the stage number one, the rapport building with your client. Next is exploration phase. Finally, coach attempts to help the employee to understand himself and the problem better. First, you have to help them out to know who they are, right? And then only solution to the problem can be provided. You will do this by raising the question to help them the employee explore the problem and diagnose the problem properly. Next, the last phase of coaching is action phase. The coach and the employee jointly work out or plan specific action and the steps for the development of leader. The manager makes commitment to provide the specific support to the employee for development. Here you are not, as a coach or as a mentor, you are not providing a ready-made solution to them, right? First, you are trying to understand the problem, then you are sitting with them and then taking the action with them. Action is what? The solution to the problem. So, to conclude, the process of coaching is divided into three parts: the rapport building, the exploration, and the action plan. Fine. Now, the process of mentoring. Mentoring is a sustained relationship between young person and an experienced leader. Right? Generally, it is given to the people who are very young, new to your organization, and the people who are older in the system, having some experience, have the young people in the handhold. They guide them. They provide them conducive environment in the climate. Right? Through continued, how they do it? They do it through continued involvement, offering support and guidance, as well as assistance. Whenever a young person is going through difficult period or the phases, or they're facing some challenges. All right. So mentoring can be of two types. It can be natural mentoring or it can be a planned mentoring. As the name suggests, natural mentoring is coming out naturally, right? Somebody is your junior, colleague, or you're into informal group, you got to know about the problem and you started providing the solution, right? So this is the example of natural mentoring. Whereas in planned mentoring, as a mentor, you have to put lots of effort. As an organization, you have to formulate some formal mentoring program where you have to deliberately assign or formulate a mentor and mentee group only meeting on a particular period of time, and mentor has to make the report also. So this is the difference between natural mentoring and planned mentoring. So as the name suggests, natural mentoring occurs through friendship, collegiality, teaching, coaching, and counseling. In your class, you have observed the teacher become your mentor, right? But that is natural mentoring. It is not a planned mentoring. Whereas, in contrast, planned mentoring occurs through structured program in which mentor and participants are selected and matched to the formal process. These are structured program, very well designed by the organization for its people. Now, let's talk about the definition. Levinson et al. Have contributed to the most to the understanding of mentoring process. He says mentoring includes being a teacher, a sponsor, a counselor, a developer of skill and intellect. You're a host, you're a guide, you're an exemplar, and most importantly, supporter and a facilitator. In the realization of the vision of the young person is about the kind of life he wants as an adult. Fine, you're everything. You're a teacher, sponsor, counselor, developer, and you're helping them and supporting them so that they can attain their vision for their life. Why we do need it? What is the advantage? Right. So mentoring program can help the organization in employee retention, succession planning, career development, best practice implementation, diversity and productivity. There can be two main phases in the mentoring process, which I explained you with the help of the diagram also. Dependence and interdependence, although counter-dependence may in some case be an intermediate phase between these two phases. Now what is dependent phase? Admiration for the mentor is followed by identification with him and followed by approval. Getting guidance and checking alternative action. You're not very much involved into it, you're just providing solution to the problem and you're checking the alternative course of action. Whereas interdependent phase is characterized by trust building begin to collaborate and provide emotional support to each other, which results into autonomy. So, dear student, these are some additional books you can refer to. This is from my end. Namaste. Happy learning. See you in the next class. Thank you very much. Thank you.